Soft morning light settles over the Tasman Sea, forming the kind of calm horizon that often becomes a metaphor in stories of migration. In both Australia and New Zealand, newcomers often describe the first days as a collision of promises and uncertainties to nations that appear similar from afar, yet reveal surprisingly different emotional climates once life begins to unfold. For many Americans, Canadians, and Australians comparing these two societies, the experience becomes a study in contrasts: wide suburban streets versus compact coastal towns, bold confidence versus gentle understatement, bustling multicultural hubs versus quieter community rhythms. What feels welcoming in one country can feel overwhelming in the other, and what feels peaceful in one can also feel isolating. The initial atmosphere often shapes expectations. Australia tends to greet newcomers with a sense of scale: vast urban skylines, heavy sunlight, and a population that wears directness comfortably. Cities like Sydney and Melbourne project an energy that signals opportunity, movement, and social diversity. New Zealand, in contrast, greets people with softness. Its cities feel smaller, its conversations quieter, and its social cues more understated. Many North Americans arriving in either place quickly notice how these differences influence the emotional tone of everyday life. In Australia, the openness feels energetic yet fast-paced. In New Zealand, the warmth feels sincere but slower, almost rural even inside its cities. These first impressions grow deeper as cultural expectations surface. Australia's immigration ethos tends to operate like its economy: dynamic, competitive, driven by ambition and scale. The multicultural identity is woven into its big cities, where communities from every continent reshape neighbourhoods, cuisine, and social habits. New Zealand's approach leans toward cohesion and shared social responsibility. The country's small size encourages a preference for harmony, consensus, and humility, shaping how immigrants are integrated into everyday life. Many observers notice that Australia often rewards assertiveness, while New Zealand rewards adaptability and a calm, low-conflict demeanour. Typical interactions reflect these contrasting values. In Australia, conversations with colleagues or neighbours might be brisk, casual, and openly humorous, shaped by a national tendency to treat newcomers as quickly as locals. People are invited into social circles through activities, sports, work gatherings, weekend outings. In New Zealand, interactions form more slowly, shaped by quieter boundaries and a preference for deeper, fewer relationships. This doesn't make the country less welcoming. Instead, it expresses welcome through patience, stability, and community-minded consideration rather than instant inclusion. Over time, these cultural rhythms begin shaping how immigrants experience belonging. Australia's boldness can encourage confidence, helping newcomers establish careers and social networks rapidly. Yet the same boldness can feel demanding, especially for those unaccustomed to fast-moving cities. New Zealand's gentleness can create a greater sense of safety and emotional comfort, but its smaller scale may challenge those seeking rapid growth or diverse social environments. Each country extends welcome according to its own cultural DNA, one through opportunity, the other through harmony, revealing that better treatment depends as much on temperament as policy. Australia's social energy tends to pull newcomers into motion, shaping daily life around activity, ambition, and constant reinvention. Many Americans and Canadians observe how quickly immigrants become part of the country's rhythm. Co-workers introduce them to barbecues, weekend sports clubs, or coastal routines that blend leisure with confidence. This extroverted culture can feel like an open door. Even in workplace settings, newcomers are often encouraged to speak boldly, assert their skills, and adapt to a merit-driven environment. The resulting experience can be empowering, especially for those seeking upward mobility or a wide network of acquaintances. In New Zealand, the pattern unfolds differently. Communities look inward before they look outward, valuing steadiness and understated interaction. Immigrants often describe a sense of being quietly observed at first, a gentle assessment rooted not in suspicion, but in a cultural preference for gradual trust. North Americans arriving there typically note how invitations come later, but carry more weight. Neighborhood gatherings are intimate, workplaces value modesty over self-promotion, and relationships deepen slowly. This approach can foster a sense of genuine belonging over time, though the early months may feel more reserved than welcoming. These contrasting approaches appear clearly in everyday situations. In Australia, the multicultural landscape is immediately visible. Large immigrant communities, multilingual neighbourhoods, and cultural festivals that expand the definition of Australian in real time. Newcomers blend into the landscape quickly because so many others have walked the same path. In New Zealand, the smaller population makes each arrival feel more noticeable. Interactions with locals often carry a careful politeness, shaped by the country's cultural emphasis on respect, environmental consciousness, and low-conflict communication. This can make the social environment feel calmer, yet also more restrained. Work culture reinforces these impressions. Australian workplaces tend to reward initiative and visible enthusiasm. Immigrants who adapt to the assertive communication style often find opportunities open rapidly. In New Zealand, the professional environment emphasizes teamwork, humility, and a collaborative tone. North Americans commonly remark on the absence of hierarchy and the preference for consensus, which can feel refreshing but also slow-paced compared to Australian dynamism. Both systems offer pathways for success, but each demands different emotional adjustments. Over time, these differences shape immigrants' sense of identity within each nation. Australia's strong multicultural identity allows newcomers to maintain distinct cultural roots while embracing the national character. New Zealand's quieter ethos encourages integration through shared values rather than large cultural mosaics. Neither approach is inherently better. Instead, each reflects a different philosophy of belonging, one framed by diversity and momentum, the other by community and continuity. As the years pass, these cultural philosophies begin to imprint themselves on the daily emotional landscape of immigrants. Australia's forward-driving rhythm often reshapes how newcomers carry themselves in public life. Many Americans and Canadians notice that confidence becomes a practical necessity whether navigating competitive job markets, fast-paced social groups, or cities that reward decisiveness. This environment gradually cultivates a more extroverted mindset, encouraging individuals to step outward, speak louder, and claim space within a society defined by momentum. The sense of belonging grows through participation. The more one engages, the more the country feels accessible. In New Zealand, transformation moves in the opposite emotional direction. The social climate encourages stillness before action, listening before speaking, and understanding before asserting. Immigrants often find themselves adopting a softer interpersonal tone, shaped by the country's preference for empathy and understated communication. Many North Americans gradually adopt this slower rhythm, noticing that conversations become gentler, personal boundaries clearer, and expectations less intense. Instead of standing out, belonging emerges through alignment, through learning the subtle currents of local humor, the unspoken rules of modesty, the collective respect for nature, and community harmony. Over time, this creates a sense of being quietly woven into the social fabric. Symbolic moments reveal how these transformations take root. In Australia, a newcomer might feel the shift during a lively workplace debate where boldness is treated as competence rather than rudeness. In New Zealand, the turning point may arrive during a small community gathering where neighbours, once reserved, begin treating the newcomer not as a visitor, but as part of the shared landscape. These experiences, loud or soft, fast or slow, carry emotional weight because they reflect the culture's deeper expectations of how individuals fit into society. As these countries continue welcoming new populations, their cultural ecosystems shape newcomers as much as policies or programs ever could. Australia's vastness and diversity expand people outward, encouraging ambition and sociability. New Zealand's intimacy and calmness draw people inward, encouraging reflection, humility, and emotional steadiness. Each environment offers a different kind of support, one based on strength and opportunity, the other based on stability and trust. In the end, the question of which country treats immigrants better dissolves into a more nuanced understanding. Many Americans and Canadians eventually conclude that both nations welcome newcomers, but each expresses that welcome through its own cultural personality. Australia greets with scale, speed, and energetic inclusion. New Zealand greets with gentleness, patience, and depth. For some, the boldness of Australia becomes liberating. For others, the quiet safety of New Zealand becomes transformative. Together, these differences highlight a universal truth, that the warmth of a country is not measured by its enthusiasm alone, but by the emotional space it creates for people to reorganize their lives, identities, and sense of belonging.